how to write the names or the formula for a complex ion. So on the left, I've gotten a few things that we should probably memorize. The big takeaway is this is one of those problems you want to double check on an exam, and I'd recommend double check it by even drawing out that name which you wrote to see if it makes sense, because the steps are a lot and it's easy to mess up and overlook. So big things to remember, especially the things that I tend to forget, is brackets for all polydentate and bidentate ligands. So bracket oxalato, bracket EDTA, bracket EN, please. And when you have those polybidentate ligands or bidentates, you want to have special prefixes. So instead of ditribe, it's going to be bis, tris, tetra, kis. And another problem that I tend to forget is the metal cation needs to have their Roman numerals in the name. And when you're writing anions, it's 2 minus, not minus 2. And so this ferrite, cuprate, those are only needed when the entire coordination ion is the anion. Otherwise, you can just put like iron at the end of everything you write, or cuprate at the end of everything you write when it's inside the coordination compound. Right, and here's some examples. And it's something really funny I found was that even if it's water and there's like 1 at the bottom, you still need a bracket around it. Same thing with amine. And weird stuff is nitrito, okay, ONO, nitrito. And so when, let's say there's like sulfate, like just outside of a coordination ion, you would just write it as sulfate, not sulfide. And when it's inside the coordination ion, it becomes sulfato. Cool. And finally, if there's a charge on the entire coordination, make sure to write ion at the end of it. Okay, now we do sample problem. Spoiler alert? Not really. Anyways, so diaqua, that makes sense. But the thing is, we have oxalate, but it's a ligand, so it becomes oxalato. And then there's a subscript, so that gives us bis oxalato. And because this entire coordination is an anion, the metal has to have a special ending called ate, but you wouldn't use just iron 8, that doesn't exist. Iron's one of those special names, ferrite. Now the big thing that I wanted to talk about here is what do you write for this? And by the way, this will be the ion, of course, because there's a negative charge. What do you write for that thing? So if there were 2 complex ions, I would recommend write them out separately so you can actually identify what charge is on them. I tend to forget to do that, and so I make some weird errors. So please just take 3 extra seconds just to write both versions out so you know like what's on each of their charges, so you can find what is the actual charge on your iron. So water is neutral. Oxalato is usually -2, but there's 2 of it, so it's -4. It's just like when you have cyano, you know it's -1, but then there's 2, so you know it's -2. Nothing new. And there is a net charge of -1, and then there's Fe that we need to find. So I think it's really funny how sometimes I do this wrong, but it should be 4 minus 1. So there's a net charge of 3 on the ferrite, which is the correct name. We will do one more problem. And by the way, before moving to the next problem, you want to, on the exam, double check. You got oxalato, you got a weird prefix, you got a bracket, you got ferrite, and you got ion, and you got this Roman numeral. Just draw out what you write, or do it again. This is one of those easy problems to mess up. Okay, next problem is going to be a word problem. So we got potassium, diamine, tetra, nitro, chromate, 3, ion. What could be the formula? So what I said earlier, just write them out separately. Don't try to combine them at once, otherwise you might miss out on the charge. So potassium is 1 charge. Diamine, tetranitro. So nitro is when it's bonded to N, while nitrito or nitrit is when it's bonded to O. Okay. And this has a -1 charge. So that means this all has a -4 charge. Chromate, even though the metal name is at the end, we write it at the front. And then there's a 3 charge on it. That means neutral. So 3 minus 4, that's a net charge of -1. And then after writing these two charges separately, then you can combine it, which makes it pretty obvious. Okay, and that's the end of this video. If there's one thing you can learn from this, just triple, quadruple check using as many variety ways as possible.